As Brian states in the video, KidsQuest, by taking its work completely outside the museum walls, is doing what we are all being asked to do as professionals, leaders, and parents right now. We're all being asked to be more to the communities we serve. I'm so excited and grateful you all have joined us today to listen, learn, and connect. Again, I am Janet Kelly, KidsQuest Board Co-Chair and Director of Federal and State Government Relations at Puget Sound Energy. I'm thrilled to be welcoming you all to BizQuest on behalf of the museum, my board colleagues, and the corporate community, including many who have generously sponsored this event. On that note, I'd like to extend special thanks to the following partner sponsors: Capstone Partners, Heritage Bank, Puget Sound Energy, Team Foster at Compass, and Washington Trust Bank. We're fortunate to have additional companies sponsoring this event. The full list of corporate supporters can be found in the networking room, on our website, and on our social media channels. We appreciate all of you. It was important to us to try and maintain one of the most valuable aspects of this annual event: connecting with others. This feels particularly important right now. I hope you were able to link up with new and familiar faces during the networking time before this discussion. There will be another chance to connect after the presentation, and we imagine you'll have even more to talk about after hearing from our panel. BizQuest is an event that was developed to help connect Eastside businesses and their community partners. With a mission focused on engaging the whole family and the whole community in learning, KidsQuest Children's Museum sees itself in the unique position of being able to convene public, private, and philanthropic sectors for a conversation that informs and engages us as parents and caregivers, business colleagues, neighbors, leaders, and community members. BizQuest also serves as a critical fundraising event for KidsQuest Children's Museum. I will return later to highlight the important work the museum is doing, even as its doors remain closed, and simple ways to support our efforts in the community. The program for today includes a dynamic panel discussion on the future of today. We've been navigating a tremendously challenging time together, and 3 special guests have generously agreed to share their perspective and what this experience looks and feels like for them and their businesses. We're so excited to be joined today by Ryan Reese of Pike Place Fish, Bukta Gaysar from the Port of Seattle, and Kristen Graham from Amazon. I'm honored to first introduce Putter Burt, KidsQuest President and CEO, and today's moderator. Putter Burt joined KidsQuest Children's Museum in 1999 as executive director and led the plan to create a new children's museum in Bellevue. She has over 30 years experience serving in leadership roles at museums across the country. She also serves on the national board of the Association of Children's Museums. We are so proud and fortunate to have her at the helm of KidsQuest.
Thank you, Janet. Play is serious business, and it's been my business for over 30 years, and it's the business that turned KidsQuest into the special institution that it is today. I and many of our corporate supporters here in the room recognize the value we bring to this region. We have a unique perspective on the needs of employees, families, and the leaders living here. When I welcomed you to this event last year, I stated that KidsQuest was a thriving museum with a staff of 47 and a budget of $3.7 million, serving 250,000 people in one of the fastest growing communities in the region. Much has changed, especially in the last few months, and a few critical things have remained the same. Patrons are not walking through our doors, but we are still providing access to the joy of learning. Our building is closed, but the museum is open. What does a museum look like without a building? It looks like hundreds of educational resource kits delivered at no cost to our community's most vulnerable children and families. It looks like engaging, accessible, and educational content created and made available for free online each day. It looks like putting some of our unique museum resources to use in service of frontline workers. Did you know that KidsQuest Glowforge produced hundreds of much needed ear protectors for masks worn by our healthcare workers and other frontline heroes? This work is keeping us strong and our community strong. So when the time is right, we will not return to the new normal, but to instead a new better. I'd like to welcome our panelists to join me, and we'll begin. First, I'm pleased to welcome Bukta Gaisar, Senior Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion for the Port of Seattle. Bukta is a member of the Port Executive Leadership Team. As Senior Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, she provides leadership and strategic direction for the Port's DEI efforts. Bukta has always been an active advocate for systemic change that is grounded in principles of racial equity and social justice. Prior to the Port, she worked as a policy advisor and a community and philanthropy leader. Next, I'd like to welcome Kristen Graham, Principal at Amazon of Culture and Communications. Kristen brings a wealth of perspective to the conversation today, having a background in executive employee communications, global recruiting, philanthropy, learning and development, corporate events, and branding initiatives. Kristen is currently leading culture work for the global leadership team at Amazon and teaches their business writing courses to employees around the globe. And finally, Ryan Reese, co-owner and CFO at Pike Place Fish. Ryan Reese is one of the 4 longtime employees who purchased the iconic Pike Place Fish Market from John Yokoyama, who operated the stand since 1965 after buying it from the original owners. From employee to co-owner, Ryan has spearheaded wholesale operations and e-commerce for Pike Place Fish. These operations have been their lifeblood, while access to the market has been restricted. Welcome all.
Thanks for having me.
Good morning.
Hi. I love this. Okay, of course, I just lost my place, so let's go back. Okay, before we dive into this discussion, we're going to take a moment to acknowledge the topic we're tackling. The future of today does not look the same for everyone, because today is experienced very differently for each of us. On behalf of KidsQuest Museum, I am standing in solidarity with Black people and communities of color. As we discuss the future of today, we must acknowledge today includes systemic racism and oppression, and that pain is being felt acutely by the Black community. Children's museums have a responsibility to the children and families in their communities. This time is an upsetting one, and children are feeling this keenly. I'd like to quote the statement released by our National Association's Executive Director, Laura Huerta Maigas, then ask you all to join me in a moment of mourning and silence. We mourn the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Tony McDade, and other victims of silence and systemic racism. We mourn that America is built upon systems that oppress Black people and people of color. We mourn the violent protests that occur after peaceful protests go unheard and unrecognized. We mourn the repetition of this cycle over decades and centuries. We hope for lasting and meaningful change. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. I'm so proud to have you all here today and truly excited for the opportunity to connect this way. I'm losing my place, I'm so sorry. It's a problem with technology. Here we go. The event's original discussion topic was attracting and retaining top talent. 6 weeks ago, we realized we had to make room for discussion about how the pandemic had impacted daily work and life. For KidsQuest, we've had to reevaluate what it means to be a children's museum right now and how we continue to serve completely outside of the walls of the museum. My first question to all of you is related to motivation. What gets me out of bed every morning is thinking about working with my peers locally and nationally to ensure children's museums are here for our communities tomorrow and in the future. Without my team's support, none of this would be possible. So, Kristen, Bukta, and Ryan, I'll ask each of you to respond to the question, how are you staying motivated? How are you motivating your team? And who is keeping you motivated? Kristen, let's start with you.
Oh, okay. Just a big question for me. Thanks, Putter. No technology can save me from that one. Before I answer the question, which is a good one, I want to thank you actually for your opening statement and for holding space for this conversation today. And when you set that theme of the future of today, none of us predicted that our weeks and our days would be changing the future and the days that we're in. So this is an important conversation in a much more important time. So thank you. This is one of the ways that I stay motivated, by being able to be in this space. So thank you all. And thank you all for making time to be here. There's a lot that can pull us away. So how am I staying motivated? So as I just mentioned, personally, some online conversations like this, I think we're all getting hungry for conversations. I speak to Alexa way too much in my day. I started saying thank you to her in the morning, so that just tells you where I'm at. And that wasn't an Amazon plug. That's a statement of Kristen's isolation. I think also when you have the privileges I do to work at a company that is in the position to provide, to make our todays possible. We have lots of information of how Amazon, I would love to see a +1 in the chat if any of you have been utilizing boxes. Have you had boxes on your doorstep from Amazon? I know I do, from medical supplies to school supplies to our Amazon Music and our entertainment. Staying motivated in giving people access to not just what they need, but what they want during this time where we're all struggling. And then also the culture of bringing together. Amazon is in a position where we're still hiring. And so how can you look after inclusion during that time, conversations during that time, and onboarding people where they are at now so that they can do what they will do for us in the future.
Thank you, Kristen. Bukta, the CEO of the port sends out a daily message to all its employees, and you have been including a daily moment, equity moment. Can you give us an example of what those moments are?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Putter, for inviting me to be a part of this conversation. And thank you, Kristen and Ryan, for being my partners in this. What's interesting about this time, just about what you mentioned, the daily messages, is that because of the crisis of COVID, we have started new practices. So the daily email from our CEO to all of our employees, it was because of COVID. And also he's doing town halls with members of the executive team. And it's so interesting that our employees are motivated and love this continuous contact with the leadership and are saying, this is something that we would like for always. But when his messages started, which was, I think, March 3rd, the daily messages, I said, let's include an equity moment in the message. And some of the kinds of things that I started, at first, I didn't know what that meant. What was I going to include? That how COVID is impacting poor communities, communities of color, women. But then, it became pretty quickly evident that the inequities that we had before COVID were only exacerbated, deepened by COVID. So the number of women on unemployment have been just huge numbers. Why is that? So it became about giving information and then helping people analyze. But in the context of today and Black Lives Matter, for example, we learned pretty quickly that Black communities are testing positive for COVID and dying of COVID at 3 times the rate of white communities. And, when in conversations with friends and colleagues, people would say things like, well, that's because the high rate of hypertension or the high rate of asthma in Black communities. And I think just helping people understand that it's actually because of systemic and structural racism, and how all of these, branches have the same root. And so these are the examples of the ways that I'm sending things for people to read every day.
I love that idea. And I think I've told you before, I'm going to steal that idea. Ryan, what's motivating you, and how are you motivating your team?
Thanks for having me. Really honored to be a part of this event. Thank you. So 2 years ago, I was an employee at Pike Place Fish Market, and we had a great boss, John Yokoyama, who was like a dad to us and took care of us. And here we are a couple years later after owning Pike Place Fish Market, an iconic Seattle business that we love and want to and care for. I employ 18 people now, and these were my teammates that I was an employee with 2 years ago. And 1 in 4 people right now are unemployed. 40 plus million people in the United States are not working. And it gets me out of bed every morning to make this fish market work so that I can provide a place for 18 hardworking people to get a paycheck and health insurance and feed their families. So that's for sure like a major thing for me to get me out of bed every day, is to take care of my teammates and our employees. Something we do at the fish market, which is probably one of the most important things that we do, is every morning as a team, we huddle up in the morning right there at the corner of Pike and Pike. We have a quick stretch just to get the blood flowing. And then we have a team huddle right there on the corner. Anybody can pop down and join us anytime they want. But really, it's an opportunity for us to get creative and set some goals for the day. There's so many things in the world, that all this information that's coming at us, the government right now with, dictating when we can open or how we should open. The morning huddle allows us to set some goals and live into those goals for the day, as opposed to letting the outside world really dictate how the day is going to go for us. So if we don't huddle up in the morning and we don't set some intentions and have some creative energy going, the outside world will do that for us. And so we're all about being people of action and really dictating how our day and how we want this thing to go. So the morning huddle is key for us, and we end the day with evening huddle. How did we do? We take score and see how we did, and hopefully we did great. If not, we figure out how to improve on the next day. And then finally, we added music. We play loud music now. We forgot how much energy we get from 20,000 people a day rolling through the market, and the buskers, the music folks are set up right outside of us, and we forgot all that chatter and all that energy that people that are visiting us from all around the world bring. And that music, there was something missing, and we figured it out pretty quick, I guess. So we got some nice speakers, and we're rocking out.
I love that. I'm now going to ask you each a specific question related to your industry and your expertise. Ryan, you just mentioned 20,000 people a day. Like the museum, your model was customer service centric. Mm-hmm. What does your team and work look like now?
It's weird. Yeah, it's bizarre, you guys. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to come down to Pike Place Market, but it's pretty quiet down there right now. We're really trying to be kind of a beacon of light for the tenants that are still showing up every day down there. We're still loud, and we smile, and we say hi to people, and we encourage people. But we have really turned into like this, there's no flying fish, but we've really turned into a shipping factory. We've always thought the future of the fish market was in e-commerce and shipping fish, but we really got catapulted into this really quickly in the last 3 months. So right now our gates are kind of closed. Our big, beautiful displays are not accessible to the public. It's all behind to keep the food safe and keep our employees safe. We have some barriers up from the public. But as far as like customer service, which is the most important thing to us, we consider ourselves, nobody is better than us at customer service. Amazon's probably equal.
We can share.
Yeah, but we feel like right now we have to tell our story and provide customer service through newsletters, social media, Facebook. We have to connect with people and tell our story. And we have to, this might sound a little corny, but we're packing these boxes of fish that we're shipping around the country right now. And we have to pack those boxes with love. People are supporting us right now. And so they're spending hard-earned money to support us and to feed their families. So when I'm cutting fish and putting it in their boxes, we think about that. And like, I pack that box like I would pack that box if I was sending it to my mom, you know? So that's, whether you can see it or not, we hope that they can feel it when they open that box up.
Ryan, that is so cool. That just makes me want to order fish, to be very honest.
PikePlaceFish.com.
You got it.
Put it in the chat.
Bukta, the inequities we have known to be present in our community have highlighted and been reinforced in this crisis. In education, we've seen a lack of access to technology and the internet, varying degrees of parental support and knowledge of resources and language barriers. You are a leading diversity and equity inclusion expert. How has support demonstrated that DEI is critical now and in the future? And are you seeing other examples of businesses and institutions successfully prioritizing DEI at this time?
Yeah, so I'm glad to see that there are more people who are convinced today that racial equity must be centered and present. And I think that some of what we got out of this crisis of the last few months is that people actually can see. It didn't occur to us, I think, to many of us, that digital equity, for example, is an issue impacting people in King County. I think a lot of us maybe assumed 4 months ago that, oh, most people have internet, most people have laptops, but it turns out that quite a lot of people in rural areas don't have access to internet or don't have a computer at home free for their kid to use. So I think that all of what's been out there for the last couple of months, all of the ways that people are talking about this has increased awareness and understanding of the inequities that exist. What the port is doing, of course, the port's identity is that we're the travel agent of Washington State. And travel is right now not a business that feels safe, feels comfortable, or is open. So the realities at the airport have changed dramatically, as you all know. So of course, safety is number one, to make people feel like this is a space where it's clean, it's safe, you can come, you can go through. But at the same time, the inequities, just as an example at the airport, is that the airport employs about 16,000 people. And a lot of employees have already been furloughed or laid off. And we have worked with Fair Work Center and Port Jobs and brought them in to be available and to help sign people up for unemployment insurance, to help them access other benefits, help them sign on for health insurance benefits. So just understanding the incredible privileges that some of us like myself have. I can work from home. I can put my laptop right here on my couch in front of me, have my coffee and work. That is not a privilege that's been allowed to the person working at the airport who works for minimum wage and has already been furloughed. You asked about best practices. My former employer, King County, I feel like King County has done tremendous work around so many issues. Seattle King County Public Health have been a leader around understanding COVID impact, analyzing impact. The data is now available by race, by class, and you can look at the map and see where people are being impacted. And so I look at them as a model for my work.
Thank you, Bukta. Kristen, we're not all just working remotely or just parenting right now. We're trying to work and parent during a pandemic, which is seen, I know, in my meetings when my children walk in and want my attention right now, and they're in their 20s. How are you and how is Amazon evaluating and responding to employees' needs and their needs and concerns right now?
I'm sitting here wondering if Putter asked me that question because my dog's been barking and my teenager walked in the middle of the last question. So, or maybe she just honestly is asking me that question. So yes, I think that you're right. All of us are struggling, whether we have dependents at home or extended family that we're looking after and thinking after in our hearts and minds. One of the things that Amazon is doing for a dispersed workforce is yesterday, they just announced that they are offering 10 days of subsidized backup family care to all of their employees. And so they're working through care.com and they're using it for not just child care centers, but in-home child and adult care. So that is a huge benefit that they put forward. I know not every organization can do that. However, examples like this help us think through what are other remnants of such ideas of being of service to our people during this time. Because Amazon had also done a lot of investments into the healthcare space during the COVID crisis early days, they were able to come forward and offer dedicated healthcare resources, 24-hour hotlines, Hello Doctor appointments, online videos, as we were all getting educated in this new world order. Beyond that, though, because I know a lot of people are listening are thinking that's great for the scale of an Amazon. One of the things I've really seen at the forefront is the non-financial, very tangible efforts that they put forward. First being at the front where possible for employees who can work from home, as Bukta said, to be able to do that. I have visited a few of our offices and it's cleaner than my home, I'll tell you that, in terms of the sanitation and the access to masks and really donating in that space. There's also a lot of workplace flexibility. Just recently, I've seen teams say, we're going to have meeting-free days. We're all trying to have space and grace for each other as we're processing through this time, especially for people who are in households where others are going out into the world. And then I want to go back to what Bukta said about the impact of the larger communities. So it's lovely that Amazon's able to do that. However, that digital divide and equity is a real thing. And so I have seen where companies are able to put donations back into the community. And some of that, it can be financial, as Amazon announced today, a donation to equity and justice causes, but also laptops to the Seattle School District was something that they'd done early on. And our Amazon Web Services was underwriting a lot of cloud and security things for nonprofits in this space. So it doesn't all have to be a big checkbook or big benefits. It can be, what can we do here in?
Thank you, Kristen. All right, the next question is for all the panelists again, and I'm going to ask each of you to respond. What previous assumptions did you have about your work? Has that changed during the pandemic? And what are you doing differently that you believe may become a long-term process? Kristen, what do you think?
So yeah, previous assumptions, and one thing that I hope becomes a long-term sustainable practice is putting well-being as a focal point for our people, not just our current employees, but how we attract others. I think we all have a window into each other right now, what we are standing for, how we are responding. I was hearing from one of our recruiting leaders that says, our candidates are saying, what are you doing for your people? It's not, what's the base salary? And so I really think that well-being is part of the whole community of how we bring our brains together, brings our whole being together. I think how and where we work. I know Amazon gets a lot of attention for our geographic footprint, and I look forward to the opportunity to hire talent wherever it may reside. So, and that will have long-term economic impacts for housing and commuting. I know I'm certainly enjoying being on the road when I am on the road these days. So I do think that we can have that larger impact on it. And then on a personal note, since I do spend a lot of time in communications and learning and development, one of the things I get personally nerdily excited about is that we have time for learning. And I say time in that broader space. I'm seeing so many more employees come and take advantage of resources that were already there, or conversations. Our affinity groups are having huge impact in their events. And so, and when I'm myself teaching classes, as you mentioned earlier, it's accessible for all. The last class I did 2 weeks ago, I had people from Colombia and Brazil and Kansas all in the same class. And I think that our minds are now on a different platform, a unified platform.
Thank you, Kristen. And thank you for touching on a little bit on mental health. I know that my own mental health has been tested during this time, along with many of my friends and peers. Bukta, what looks different, and what is gonna bring, what are you gonna bring to the future on that?
You know, of course, as a person who does racial equity work, this last week has been profound for all of us. But in my, to answer your question, to be honest, I came to the Port of Seattle to create their first Office of Equity about a year ago. The Port of Seattle is the only port in the country that now has an Office of Equity. But there's a lot of equity initiatives, of course, with staff in a lot of governments around the country. But I was thinking a year ago that I need to be careful, I need to be strategic, take small steps, one step at a time. But what's really interesting about what's happened during COVID, and especially the last few days, is that I think I need to double down in my own efforts, my personal commitment, push harder. And I see a lot more people are interested and showing up to push harder together. One example of this is that, as I shared earlier, our CEO has now kind of a digital town hall every week with different members of our executive team. And about, 800 employees watched the town halls. Last night, we decided with no script whatsoever and to only talk about Black Lives Matter and the events of the last week. And as you can imagine, for the sort of a mainstream organization and members of the executive team, that's a pretty big risk to just show up and to talk about your feelings about what's happened, to process the events of the week. And we did. And it was raw, it was painful, it was intense. And hundreds of employees have written to our CEO and our executive team saying how much they appreciated that, how much courage they saw in that act. So I think both people are ready for more action, more commitment, and also our leaders are being encouraged to take more risks. So I see an opportunity to push harder and to really unite and be in solidarity together in this moment.
Victor, what I hear is you said you were taking small steps. It's time to take big steps.
Yes.
Ryan, what previous assumptions did you have about your work, and what do you think will change in your new work?
Oh man, the list is long for us right now. Our whole business model has been flipped upside down. So we're really looking at everything. One big thing for us owners and our employees is the culture at Pike Place Market has always been one of really hard work, and everybody at the market works 12-hour days. Our staff works 12 hours a day. I probably do 13-hour days. And I have a wife and a daughter at home, and my life revolves around the fish market. And I love that fish market, and our staff loves the fish market. But do we have to work 12-hour days? Does that have to be the way it is? And our model has worked so well for so long that it's scary, especially as a relatively new business owner, to rock the boat. And this has given us an opportunity to go, guess what? We're going to be open. Everybody's going to work 8-hour days. And for 3 months, we've all been working 8-hour days. I have an extra 4 hours a day to spend at home with my family, or, being out in my yard, or doing something besides being at that fish market that I love. And so we're doing that, and guys are coming in and the gals are coming in, and they're rested and they feel great in the morning. And then we get off and we have energy still. So, this has been a really unique opportunity. So the discussions we're having as owners right now is, well, it's a little bit easier for us to do this right now during these times. How do we carry this forward when hopefully things get back to normal and we do need to be open longer hours? How do we still compensate our staff who are used to earning 12-hour work days? Can we afford to pay them 12-hour work days, only working 8 hours? And we are doing that right now, and it's working, and we believe that we can do that in the future. Our old owner, Johnny Yokoyama, sometime back in the late 60s, I believe, he decided to open on Sundays. Nobody in the market was open on Sundays. Pike Place Market was closed on Sundays. That was a family day. So we figured he started it, we can end it. So we're closed on Sundays. Just a day for people to hang out with their families and relax and have a family day and just do whatever. So at the moment, we're closed on Sundays. And so those two things are great. And then finally, just from a business perspective, it's always been a point of pride for us to not advertise. We never paid for advertising.
Wow.
At all.
I didn't know that.
We figured that with all the media and the sporting events that happen in Seattle and 20,000 visitors a day, that we just have this great brand name. And when we set up an e-commerce site, that the people would just come flooding in to buy fish from us. And what we found out is we were super wrong. It doesn't matter how great of a brand you have. If you're not an expert in e-commerce, you will have a very difficult time being successful selling your goods online. So we've paid for some serious technology upgrades. We've hired professionals to help us with search and operating our e-commerce platform. And it turns out that we're really good fishmongers, but we are stupid to how to sell online. And so we're really learning how to utilize professionals that know what they're doing to help us. We can't do it all on our own. So the growth for us is in e-commerce. Pike Place Market is about as busy as it can get. And so we're really gonna we think that's the future for us. Our future growth, at
That's
least,
awesome.
is going to be online and hire people that are good at what they do.
Wise words. All right, we're going to end this with one of my favorite topics. How are you all playing in this time of quarantine? And do you have something on your desk or in your workspace that encourages you to play? This is a quick, because we only have a few seconds left. Bukta, how are you playing?
I'm not doing such a good job of balancing work and play. I have a lot to learn from Ryan. So Netflix is my play these days.
I love that. Kristen, what are you playing with?
Well, I'll have to say Amazon Prime. Thank you, Bukta. I'm kidding. Amazon has dogs in their office. I saw my dog underfoot, and that forces me to get outside and get fresh air. I think fresh air is a form of play and sanity for sure. And then I was looking around my desk. I have all these colored markers. Does that count?
It does.
Color.
Totally
I need color
does.
in my life.
I love that. And Ryan, how are you bringing play into your life? With your daughter, maybe?
Yeah, right. Well, I'm building a treehouse. Yeah. So I'm getting off early because I'm not working 12 hours a day. So I come home and I'm building a fun little treehouse right now at home. And it's been just a great time to hang out with my daughter and learn a new project together. And then at work, we're just something we never did before. We have 12 people that might be on staff for the day. Everybody takes their lunch breaks solo. So it's like one person goes to lunch, comes back, taps out the next person, they go to lunch, taps out the next person, they go to lunch. Since we're kind of like a factory right now, we close the shop down for 30 minutes and we all have lunch together.
I love that.
So that's like so bizarre for us, and
I love that. I am a jigsaw puzzler. And so we have a big table in our living room, and I work on it in between meetings to clear my head. My husband and I work on it when he comes home, and my kids pop in and they also work on it. So we're playing as a family. I really want to thank all of you, Kristen, Bukta, Ryan, so much for this informative panel. And I'm reading the next line that belongs to my friend Janet. So back up. This is the problem with technology. Full transparency. It's time for me to welcome Janet back, and we'll say goodbye. And thanks to our panelists. I feel so privileged to have been with you today. Our first virtual fundraiser event, and I think you guys did a good job. Snaps to all of us. Thanks, Janet.
Awesome. Well, I don't want to repeat everything you just said, Putter. You stole my lines.
I did. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, just want to thank you all. That was really informative, especially in this unique time and our equally unique BizQuest platform. So at PSE2, we have had to modify our daily operations to make sure we can keep the lights on and keep our employees safe. Safety is the foundation of our work, and that hasn't changed during these times. People and community are also at the heart of what PSE does. We recently launched an $11 million customer assistance program to help our customers most at risk pay their electricity and natural gas bills. I'm proud that PSE has also maintained our commitment to fulfill sponsorships of community events like the one today for BizQuest. PSE believes that KidsQuest plays an important role in providing early education and hands-on learning for our littlest ones, potentially someday training them to be renewable energy engineers or electric truck engine mechanics. I first became involved with KidsQuest when I was expecting my second daughter just over 4 years ago. I didn't know what to expect, but I can tell you that I had no idea how much more than just a museum KidsQuest was and continues to be. My experiences initially were from the lens of being a visitor and then a member, but I continue to be amazed every day about what our dedicated staff and leadership team do to partner with our underserved communities, take our programs out of the building through camps and now virtually, and provide unique sensory opportunities to meet children where they are at. One quick personal story to share is about my youngest daughter, Claire, who is just 3.5. Just before the museum closed, she visited with my dad and went to the story tree where my dad read her the book Rescue and Jessica, which is about a double amputee, Jessica, who survived the Boston Marathon bombing and her service dog, Rescue. My daughter loved it so much that my dad bought her the book, and now she goes to sleep with it every night. If it weren't for KidsQuest, where every book in that story tree is thoughtfully chosen, I can't say she would know about amputees and the strength and courage to get through difficult times, which is especially important right now. It's this and more that kids can learn through being in the KidsQuest community. As Putter said at the beginning of our program, never in our wildest dreams did we envision a time when the museum building that we all worked so hard to open its doors to the eager faces of children and families would not be able to open. But that day came on March 13th and remains the case today. What KidsQuest staff knew and understood immediately was that although the building had to close, the children we serve are still in our community and they need us, maybe now more than ever. Their parents and caregivers need us. The logistics of KidsQuest's work currently looks different. It's happening 100% outside of the museum walls, but the mission, motivation, and need for play-based learning remain the same. KidsQuest has always been more than a museum. It's why BizQuest came about. We are more than what's inside the walls of the building. And in fact, it's this community-facing work that is keeping us inspired and alive today. As a city, region, and society, we are figuring out new ways of coming together and in particular, stepping up in support of each other through all of this. KidsQuest is a leader in its field and in this community. It's an organization that brings fun, inspiration, innovation, and a constant reminder that play is important, especially in times of crisis. Today, I invite you to join me in supporting KidsQuest with a donation to ensure that our vital work in the community continues in this time when people need us the most, even as the building remains closed. There are 2 quick, easy ways to give here and now. A link to donate is being shared in the chat with everyone. Our staff will share the link several times to keep it present in your chat box. Once you return to the room for networking, you will see a green Donate Now button on the left side of the room. You can also click there to give. Finally, the link is also in the calendar invite you were sent for today's event. The donation links take you to the KidsQuest website. The donation page will open in a new window so you remain in the event. And for those of you who already donated at registration, thank you. Thanks again, everyone, for being here this morning. We really value your time and are grateful for your support. I look forward to connecting with you back in the virtual ballroom.